All right. So anyway, all right. So there was a slight change there. Uh, X now requires that you have a premium account to broadcast live to Twitter, to X Twitter. That's a change that was since last week. Anyway, everybody, welcome to Accuracy in America. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, maggots, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers. Don, I was thinking that we should probably cut these shows down to 30 minutes in the summer since there's not much news. or go up to an hour and a half or something.
Okay. Well, I still apologize for the issue or whatever because I'm now on air and still doing it. And this is a Bluetooth connection. I'm not even using the camera's microphone. We're using the computer's microphone. So anybody watching out there that has any suggestions as to what the deal is, I will gladly welcome them. But I don't have this problem on StreamYard in general. I've done some other tests. It just seems to be when I'm on doing this particular broadcast. So I don't know. There's something going on.
Man trying to keep us down.
All right, so you can hear me okay though, right?
Yeah.
All right. I don't come in too muffled or anything? All right.
Sounds good.
Good. All right, well, let's go. Yeah, not enough news, right? Not enough news during the summer. Just as things were slowing down
doldrums.
Supposedly slowing down.
There were doldrums.
Yeah, obviously the big news of this past week, past few days, is the shocking assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Butler Park, Pennsylvania, by a young man who I think they're still trying to figure out who he was, motivations, these kinds of things. Will probably take a while to sort out. They learn some things. But, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions about him. I mean, I think things are coming in about him. But I think, I know my wife's first reaction in general was just like, they're not speaking behind like bulletproof glass and stuff like that. And I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, Trump is quite the figure. I think he would have outright rejected this beforehand. I don't know that he likes to be close and do this thing.
Right.
And that's kind of a separation issue. And we saw, we've seen the video over and over again. Pop, 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 pop. Some people duck. Other people are like, "What's going on?" It was an interesting thing here to see that not everybody panicked. People were kind of confused as to what was going on, right? I mean, the Secret Service seemed to be confused as to what was going on. So, so what's your take here?
Well, first of all, like we don't know who this guy. All we know is they say he was a registered Republican. His parents had Trump signs in the yard. I guess he lived with his parents. It seems odd to me that a pro-Trump person would try to kill Trump. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but, there it is. The FBI has looked through his phone, and they say there's not a lot of evidence there. But, it hasn't let anybody else look at the phone, and you really can't trust the FBI pretty much at all at this point. I think most people would agree. So we don't know. We don't know who he was, or we don't know a whole lot about him, or what he could have been doing this for. It doesn't really matter, right? I think the questions now to answer are, obviously this Secret Service has some questions to answer. That roof was obvious danger point, and they didn't cover it. They didn't put anybody up there. The lady said, because the roof was sloped, like the Secret Service has never guarded a sloped roof before. And it's an obvious, easy shot at the president. People saw the guy up there Cops saw the guy up there. Secret Service saw the guy up there. They knew he was there. They knew he had a rangefinder. They knew he had a rifle. They did not. No one made any attempt to go wrestle him to the ground. Apparently, the Secret Service's rules of engagement on this are don't do anything to a shooter until the shooter shoots. So you got to wait till the protectee is dead to act, right? Fortunately, that's not what happened here. I think the Secret Service director's dead woman walking. She will be or should be fired by the end of the week. The only thing that's keeping her off now is she's personal buds with Joe Biden, Jill, the wife. I think that I think the idea that this resets the campaign and so forth. Republicans trying to push, Trump is a changed guy. He's more, calm, and he feels chosen now and whatnot. I don't know about all that kind of talk. It doesn't appear to have hurt Biden much in the polls, at least so far. And so, I don't know. I think it'll be, in a really tumultuous campaign, an assassination attempt will be, we'll be talking about this more 5 years from now than 5 weeks from now, right? We're going to go on to other things, and it'll just be a multi-news cycle event, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, if they talk about anything, it's just that how close this guy got to taking Trump out. I mean, if it wasn't this young, inexperienced guy, he was close enough that a reasonable, trained shooter would have taken Trump out. He wouldn't have missed like he missed. And you and I are old enough now that we can go back and we can think about.
Have you seen this simulation? I guess the CNN did. And it shows like Trump turn his head, and it shows like where the bullet would have been if it hadn't turned his head, and where it was because he turned his head. If he hadn't turned his head, he'd have been killed. He'd been hit right in the back of the head, and he'd have been killed. So I mean, it was very close to him being killed.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just this fortunate set of circumstances, I guess, for Trump that he didn't get killed. Yeah, I mean, he was looking at that chart or whatever it was. Because he was talking about all these other things about Biden, I guess, and so that's something a shooter can't account for, is that if the speaker or their target makes a sudden move, and you've got that, but he did take several shots, and he unfortunately killed someone. He injured a couple other people. Assassination attempts like this are not all that common. I mean, we've got the hammer attack on Pelosi's husband, and Pelosi. We have
not really a political assassination,
right? That wasn't.
We all kind
of know. That was a little bit different. I mean, but I couch it in George Wallace.
Right.
Ronald Reagan, George Wallace. RFK. I mean, Bobby Kennedy. RFK Jr. So I see that. I mean, those are the ones I see as kind of the markers for this. Other attempts I don't really see quite as much. But it's still kind of shocking to the psyche to see that this happens. It has brought some people together, at least temporarily. It probably has, muted, some of the criticism of the media of Donald Trump, at least for now, and things like that. And it leading right up to the convention too. It created an interesting dynamic for them as well. But I don't know. I mean, do you think we'll ever really know what this guy's motivation was? And I don't know if he's got enough of a trail to say why he wanted to do this.
Well, one of the things is he has remarkably little trail, right? There's very few 20-year-olds alive today that have as little trail as this guy, especially who live in an industrialized country where their electricity is readily apparent, right? So, that's one of the things. The other thing is, will we ever know? Yeah, I think we will. I think we'll eventually find out. We'll eventually be able to connect him to whoever or whatever. I want to know who he was talking to the days before that. I want to know, who he's been interacting with the last couple of years. I want to know, if he's talked to anyone in the government lately. Is anyone on any government agency? I think there's enough evidence here of neglect, and that's being, that's all you can really say, I guess, right now is neglect by the Secret Service and by the security people. You see a guy with a rifle and a rangefinder, right, going to the roof of a building where you'll have a shot at the president or at the former president, and you don't do anything, right? What were you waiting on to take action? That's nobody, and people are telling you there's a shooter, right? I need to know like how that happened. I need to know like why the Secret Service seemed determined to ignore the warnings about this, right? And they were gathered in the building below. They were in the building that he was on top of, right? That was like their gathering place, and they decided not to be on there because it's a sloped roof. It's like, excuse me, you don't guard sloped roofs? It's just like this doesn't add up, and it's easy to say, okay, she's another. The head of the Secret Service is just another DEI, affirmative action hire or whatever that they took, and a friend of Jill's or whatever. But this looks. I think you need to go and rule out malevolent here, right? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they're just this incompetent. But there's a lot of things here that suggest to me that we need to look at the motivations of the people involved. We need to, because if you look at like the Biden administration. There's motive here. There's opportunity here. There's a pattern of behavior here, right? They've been willing to do anything they could think of to do to take him off the ballot, right? They didn't want to have his name appear on the ballot, right? There was that lawsuit, right? The Supreme Court threw out. There's been the lawfare cases. They made up a law in to be able to resurrect the E. Jean Carroll case, right? They made up a law to resurrect the Alvin Bragg case, right? They went and fixed all these things in the state of New York just to go at Trump, right? So you have all these people that just, they're willing to overturn justice and fix whatever they need to fix to get at Trump. Okay, and you're telling me that all else has failed. They're behind in the polls. Their own politicians are telling them, if Biden doesn't quit, he can't win. And you're telling me that no one would come up with this idea? I don't believe that.
Well, that's always a possibility, I guess. But this kid looks like, from all accounts so far, that definitely a loner. But we don't have. He has left very little electronic trail and everything like this, which is pretty remarkable in this day and age.
Right.
And maybe they'll be able to trace back his steps and some other things like that. The stories I've seen, he was a loner in high school, he just didn't fit in. He was pretty smart.
But those are the kind of guys who usually end up in this. It doesn't mean that there's no malevolent force in the background, right? It's just they're the tip of the spear of these things, right? Someone called the guy who shot up the people in the grocery store in Buffalo, and the guy who shot up the school in Uvalde, Texas, the day before they did it. Same number, called them both. Who's that number? Did they call this guy on his phone that has no evidence? I don't know. Who are these people? What are they doing?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not, I don't know. What are you suggesting? Heck, I don't know, right? But I do know that there's a lot of suspicious stuff here, right? And that they were really intent on getting gun control across the thing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's what the current director said. That was her response, was that he wouldn't. They aren't supposed to shoot till somebody else shoots. So, I don't see how that can be. That didn't work. That was the thing that that's how the Soviet Union fell. People don't remember this, right? But Gorbachev realized that with the Strategic Defense Initiative, the shield, the shield against nuclear weapons, right? That the U.S. had first strike capability on him, right? They could hit him and he couldn't hit them back. If we could stop the missile, right? So he's like, okay, well, you promised not to shoot first. And Reagan said no. And he called the head of Hungary and said, open the border with Austria because we're done. I mean, that's, everybody gives the credit to all this other stuff, but it was that simple.
Yeah. So I mean, this guy could have sat around and watched a bunch of YouTube videos. He could have been on the dark web. Who knows? A bunch of things out there that just kind of, took him down this path because you kind of, I think that's what you're alluding to. I mean, guys like this, they can be easily influenced. A phone call, a video, some things like that. They're looking, they want to be somebody. They want to kind of stand out from the crowd because they've been ignored or pushed to the side or they've been bullied or whatever. So this is it. I guess, I'm guessing that he figured that he might get this done, he'd become famous, but maybe he wouldn't live through the incident as well. He did have, apparently, I guess he had other plans too. I guess he had some cell phone transmitter and a bunch of other. So he had some backup plans apparently. If this
Right, he had
didn't
some
work,
explosives. He was going to be able to detonate some explosives.
yeah, other things were going to happen. But yeah, it's like the Secret Service is going to have to they're going to have to really be looked at very carefully. As you said, the director, she's got to go. I, I guess Biden will fire her. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know about Biden firing people.
Right. And like this is a friend of his wife's and he always says these things. He makes a point of like, because he wants to, court women voters, right. Or whatever. But he's always like, well, my boss, Jill, tells me such and such. Like, ha ha. But we didn't elect Jill, right? We don't know anything about Jill. Right, what she would do or should do as president, right? We elected you, right? We don't want it turned over to Jill, right? You're the decision maker. That's one thing. It's like there are all these people are hitting on Melania Trump, right? Because she's not by his side in the courtroom, she's not by his side at this and that and the other, and it's like she is doing the role of first lady, right? You're married, you show up at the stuff where you have to have both there, but. He's the guy. He's the president. It's not me. It's my husband. So you got business with the president. It doesn't really involve me. It involves him, right? Now we want some comfort from these people, right? We want to know that they don't hate their husband or whatever, right? Well, he only beats me on Thursdays and Fridays now. That's a big improvement, right? Stuff like that, But that's all we want from them. And I think she takes a lot of garbage from the left, just people jealous of her for being beautiful and whatnot, and that's part of this, just the petty meanness that's underlies all of this.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of feel.
I think people don't realize like how desperate they are to keep Trump out of office. For a lot of them, it's an existential threat because. They've broken laws and, I don't know, the last time he was going to go in and arrest a bunch of people and he didn't do it. But, they're worried that he means it this time. Jim Comey is like, I got to leave the country if he wins. Yeah, you do. You certainly do. Because otherwise, you better go somewhere without an extradition treaty too. Because otherwise, you're going to prison. He's got you. He got you for lying.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what, in fact, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, the polls haven't really shown a whole lot of movement after this. I mean, there's no doubt that Trump has gained a lot of additional sympathy from people about this and everything. And the Biden people have, they've at least for now, they pulled a lot of their kind of attack ads and stuff like that. In the meantime, I think they need a little kind of cooling off period there before they go back on there, because it's a very tricky situation, right? You don't want after this has happened, a kind of a near death kind of a thing like this, and it leads right into this convention, which we're now on day 3 of, and by all measures, it's going pretty well for the Republicans. Even the media reports are relatively positive because I think they're shocked by the amount of unity the Republicans have put together there, right?
Now you do have some chipping about that. The moralizers of the world, like, what is this? What was her name? Something Rose, who spoke.
Amber Rose or something.
Amber Rose, and so they're like, "Oh, she's a porn star or whatever. She's on OnlyFans." What is she doing addressing the law and order, family-oriented, family values convention? And the thing about it is, what's happening in America and what Trump is trying to tap into is that a lot of people who were not for this at all, they didn't see at all the value of family and so forth, right? Family values, American values, are suddenly like, wow, when you take them away, as the Democrats have done, look what happens. Look at all the hatred. Look at all the destruction. Look at all the economic malaise. Look at the foreign policy failures. It didn't work to become hateful and mean and nasty, right? Maybe we need to go back to the other thing, right? So there are people, there are some people who are radically changing what they think to get under the Trump tent, right? They're radically realigning what they say they believe. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis have both given big, Nikki Haley hammered it last night. She was all over promoting Trump last night and what it meant and why we had to have him and so forth. A big rousing speech that the whole convention seemed to think was great, right? Because people are radically changing to get behind this because, they're starting to realize, things are very wrong and we've been told this guy's to blame and that's not squaring with the facts, right? Look at all this, like, it's not just her, it's Bill Ackman, hardcore leftist has declared he's supporting Trump. The head of Twitter, Elon Musk, has said he's going to give Trump $45 million a month for his PAC, right, to help promote the campaign. The other thing is, you were talking about ads. The Biden administration has spent something like $70 million on radio ads, and a lot of it in battleground states. It's not moving the needle, right? And that is why, while we're over here saying, it looks like our coalition may be growing, we got some people we hadn't seen before, they are over there saying, if we don't bump Biden off the ticket, we're going to lose the House, the Senate, and the White House. Adam Schiff, the latest to do this. So, and I guess, have you seen this thing that's out this morning that Biden was meeting with House Democrats, Representative Crow, who was a war veteran. I think he was even injured in the war. And he has a Bronze Star. He got into it with Biden about this, and Biden's like, what have you done with your Bronze Star? He goes, I've reset NATO. I fixed this foreign policy, that foreign policy. He goes, who doesn't think that I am the best foreign policy person ever? Like what world leader would say that, right? And so, Biden is getting ugly and nasty to the people who can help him. As you saw the Lester Holt interview, that was kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I should step back here too. I meant to cover a couple other things just relation to the whole shooting thing, but I just kind of ignored for some reason. We're talking about the story about the UVA assistant professor Sethunya Mokoko, who said he wasn't the only one, but he said that this was staged.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the poor guy who got killed. Yeah, there were a lot of them. Their reaction was that it was staged. Like, this didn't really happen. They set this up. And it's like, well, people are dead from it, and wounded. It's like it's not made up.
Yeah, it's kind of like that whole, that whole 9/11 conspiracy group. It's like, that didn't happen, or, it was all made up and all that kind of stuff like that. It's like, it was.
I had a bout, I guess it was last month, I had another bout with the 9/11 people. Because I always, people put this up, and it's like, I saw the plane sticking out of the Pentagon, right? You could drive by and see it on the highway. I went up, and there was a place in Arlington County, you could get up and look down on the whole thing, watching them cleaning it off, trying to get it out of there and so forth. There was a plane. It was American Airlines plane, right? It's not something else, a missile or all this other crap that they've come up with. and people send me these pictures, like, where are your pictures of the plane? It's like, well, I don't have any pictures of the plane. I saw it. I was there, right? Hundreds of thousands of people were there, but people won't believe it. They don't, they're convinced of these theories, and it's,
I don't understand. It's like, but please tell me what happened to all the people that we don't have on this earth anymore. Where is Barbara Olson? Is she living? Is she
right?
living on a Caribbean island? Is that what she's been doing?
She out there with Elvis and
Yeah.
Hitler and Amelia Earhart.
Please explain that to me. I mean, it's like how or why would you create something that horrible on live TV like that? I mean,
Right.
I saw that. I saw the second plane hit live, on television on CNBC. That is a memory I will never forget. So don't give me this crap that this did not happen, and all of the other things. It's just unbelievable. It's like, what happened to they staged blowing up, the Twin Towers. Really? I mean, it's like, yeah. Talk to the widows, talk to the families of those that were left behind. Do they think this was a hoax and staged?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I mean, every September 11th, they're there reading the names of their loved ones, right?
Right.
And
there's also people going around saying, dang, he missed, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Because one thing, it's like, leftists want to play with radical ideas. They want to play with radicalism, right? Like, there's no, you can keep sticking your finger in that socket and nothing's ever going to happen, right? But, you almost found out what would happen, right? What drink you could have stirred, right? As if Trump would have been killed, we would be looking at a very different country right now, a very different situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that it's just that what would have happened had Trump been killed? I mean, I remember what this country was like vaguely, because I was still a young child after Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy were assassinated. It was not pretty. DC was, they were blowing it up basically. I mean, it was on fire. The riots were everywhere. Yeah. I mean, I had one of my best friends, his dad managed to escape unscathed from this because he had a shop, and I guess it sold like wood stoves and stuff like that. Anyway, and he had a bunch of like pro MLK and all this kind of stuff. He made sure he plastered his windows, all this stuff. And the rioters skipped it. He's on like 7th Street. They skipped his store while they looted and tore up and did everything else to other places. But it was a complete mess, and this would have been utter chaos. The Democrats talk about Donald Trump and threat to democracy and things like this. Killing him. I mean, we would have just spun out of control. I just can't even imagine what this would have been like. What we would be doing right now today. Could we even really do a lot of this stuff? It would just be unbelievable, and everything. The other thing, a couple other things too, I wanted to touch on. I mean, I mentioned how someone was killed. This retired firefighter, right? Corey Comparator. Anyway, a hero, right? He shielded his wife and his daughter from this, and I guess they've raised a ton of money, which is great. It will not bring him back. It will not compensate the family for what they lost. And we have a couple other victims, I guess, that are still in the hospital and things like that. So once again, conspiracy theorists, this Mokoko, if you're out there somewhere, and others, is like, please tell me how this has been staged and faked. The Comparator family lost their husband and their father. That is a real thing. So please, don't tell me about that. And I think you were just mentioning about, like, oh dang, he missed. I think that was one of the people who did that was someone in Jack Black's band, right? The Tenacious
Right.
D. They were touring, and he made something like comment like that. So they've canceled the rest of their tour because of that.
Right.
You know, Jack Black is no conservative, but I mean, you know, he's put into a very uncomfortable situation where one of the bandmates made this very, you know, this horrible remark, and was basically said, you know, we can't go on, we can't have that, you know, with all of this.
I don't blame him. I think he did the right
So
thing. You're inviting a lot of trouble, right? You keep
yeah,
going.
yeah. So you know, Trump, you know, I mean, I think since, you know, with the debate, with all of this, you know, it does look like, I mean, he's still a fighter. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, this whole, you know, this photo, that photo is going to live forever. I mean, if you're the
Right.
Biden campaign, you're like, you can't stop that photo from appearing everywhere. And the epitome of what Donald Trump is, you know, and everything like that. You know, if you want to get your people together and do things, that, you know, you'll wind up with that as well, right? I mean, that the modern crowd are now doubling down and tripling down. I mean, they're even more into Donald Trump than they were before
Right.
that day, if anything.
That's right.
He has inspired them even more by everything that he did that day. You know, even after getting buzzed, you know, on here and, you know, missing, just barely escaping death, to have that, you know, and there he is at the convention. I guess the speech will be on what, Thursday night.
Yeah.
JD Vance goes tonight, I guess. You know, so this winds up playing very well into Republican hands. You talked about Haley's speech, DeSantis mentioning weekend at Bernie's, but you know, you know, Republicans there have, by and large, they haven't been overly in over attack mode, right? It's been really, this is Donald Trump, and this is what he stands for. This is why we have to support him. This is why you have to vote for him. You know, they'll save the rest for later. You know, because once again, it's just a few days after the shooting. Let's
Right.
focus
And
on
they
these
now
other
have tons
things
of
right
money
now.
and have spent very little. So
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
yeah.
When you know, paid persuasion, you know, Trump is just getting started.
Yeah, so the whole what I heard is that the whole bandaged ear thing is becoming kind of a thing now. Is that there are delegates that are now wearing bandages on their ears, kind of in support of Donald Trump. You
There you
know,
go.
and yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's just it's interesting how this has been turned around. You know, because once again, we are in a 24/7 news cycle. Uh, oh yeah, the other thing too was just that how pissed off. Uh, you know, Morning Joe was, right. Scarborough was about getting pulled.
How
You
about
know, the
that?
NBC brass is like, we want to make sure that nobody says something that we don't want them to say. So we're yanking your show, and we're going to put like this news feed, which apparently really didn't happen. And so he's really peeved at his network, which is kind of
Right. Says we're going to be here
funny to
next
see.
time, and if there's no news feed, we're going on the air.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
dude, I got news for you. You don't get to decide what goes on the air.
He's
Right? And
become
if you
very
press that, you
defiant.
might find out. Yeah, don't
Yeah,
make them
I want to
prove
know
it.
I want to know who's got the power, you know, control in that situation.
Yeah, it ain't
It's not,
Joe. I can tell
it's
you
not
that.
Joe Scarborough and
The,
Mika Brzezinski.
the thing about that is, it's like, okay, supposedly they were more worried about the guests than Joe and Mika. So what does that tell you? He has a stable of guests. You know, it's the same people over and over and over. And, you know, NBC is so worried about how half-cocked and unserious these people are that when it comes to a time where it could truly do some damage, they can't, you know, they can't risk it, right? It also tells you that, you know, all, you know, I see these people on X all the time. They're complaining about Katie Tur. I guess they don't consider her, you know, anti-Trump enough anymore, or whatever. You know, the network is still very much invested in protecting Biden or whoever runs against Trump, right? I mean, the reason they're doing that, the reason that it's so important that NBC not have any freakazoids saying dumb things on that show is because they don't want it to help Trump. electorally, right? That's their aim. That's what they're worried about. You can't, make no mistake about it.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, that does say a lot about that stable of guests that the brass was saying, like, we don't know if they can control themselves, so we're going to just pull the whole show, which is pretty remarkable
Right.
to
It really
right to
is.
do
It
that.
really tells you
Yeah.
a lot about their opinion of Joe and Mika too.
Right. Um, so Trump has selected Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. We talked about potential running mates, last couple of weeks. I didn't have any real favorites on my end. I would have probably been satisfied with just about anybody that was kind of in the running, or supposed running for this. Vance has got an interesting background. I mean, he was a venture capitalist. He was part of the Peter Thiel, who's a libertarian, and he has
But
some
it's
kind of
signed on to Trump.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And he does have kind of conservative leanings, that's as a lot of libertarians do. Um, the Hillbilly Elegy, man, the book, huge, bestseller, Netflix movie, hard scrabble life and Appalachia, so you've got an interesting background. I mean, he's married to an Indian woman there on top of that, and not a lot of Indian Americans are actually support Democrats, or some support Republicans, but um, and I mean, I think he's well spoken enough. I think he will probably do pretty well.
Another 70 years. Yeah, I didn't think that the Burgum was the right answer either. And I think that the reason Trump chose Vance, I mean, you're hearing some like he helps him in the Midwest. His story, as you say, is helpful. He's a Marine, a Marine from a hard scrabble background, understands being a Marine, understands, getting it done. But Biden tries to hammer at Trump on veteran stuff, right? He tries to separate. He really makes a point of trying to demagogue, the losers and suckers hoax. So the whole reason he says that, no matter how many times it's debunked, is because he thinks it hurts Trump with veterans. Vance probably helps some at least on the margins with that. Trump is, I think the reason he chose Vance though is because Vance is the best at explaining MAGA. They're trying to put some intellectual meat on the bones of Trumpism, of MAGA, right? This is what it actually means. This is a philosophy, a way of running the country that could actually go on beyond Trump, right? So I think that's a lot of what's going on there is, he is a guy who can go out and carry the message and explain it and, what are we doing here? Also, I will clear my schedule for that vice presidential debate because it will be one ugly mopping of the floor there. It will be. I mean, he'll have to be careful not to overdo it, right? But that is one of the great mismatches of intellects that's ever been on a debate stage.
Right. And Vance also is another example of a Trump critic, or at least a former Trump critic, coming into the fold. I mean, Nikki Haley wasn't invited initially to the convention. Then they invited her and she spoke, and she gave that full-throated, support. I mean, Trump is. It's been amazing where he can take some of those critics and he's moved them over, right?
Right.
And so that helps him. Yeah. I mean, I know Kamala called Vance and everything like this, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this is kind of one of those things. Is like, if we thought that Trump Biden was going to be somewhat of a mismatch because Biden doesn't have a teleprompter, Vance versus Harris. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, once again, but I don't know that any of these things really moves the needle.
Right.
Right, poll wise, but psychologically, or at least people thinking, you start looking at Trump and Vance versus Biden and Harris, and you say, which pair is more competent? I think the answer is clear. Even if you're kind of, even if you're not the biggest Trump guy in the world, or you're not a big fan, you're like, okay, this country needs competent leaders, and it's
Right.
not the leadership we have. We need to have this leaders, this pair coming in there. I do want to mention something too. The I've noticed, I'm on this DNC email list, and the number of emails that are coming out of the DNC and other groups has just exploded over the last week or so. Really, a couple of, really more so since the debate, but it's a lot about it, and they're hitting all kinds of things, right? But there was one that came up, and I don't know if you saw this, and it was subject line was Dark Brandon. And I'm like, what? Right? And what it is, it's Joe Biden with a Biden Harris coffee mug and talking about dark roast, and it's signed off as Dark Brandon. Is that the message you want to send? Is Dark Brandon?
Well, I mean, so I mean, it's Democrats, right? So they're not going to get these kind of things right. But so the message is, Trump is standing tall, right, and he's tough, right, and so to counteract that, they put Biden in his shades, right, and they call him Dark Brandon, like he's the man and he has this power and everything, and and it's like you look at it and you're like, that looks created, right? It doesn't. It looks like you have to come up with a campaign to convince people that's Biden, right? Whereas Trump, it flows. The thing about it is, and this is the thing that kills me about this whole deal. And this is part of that, is like, all you hear about, like, Biden's in the interview the other night with Lester Holt, and he says, you let him lie 23 times. And you didn't do anything about it. 23 lies, and you didn't do anything about it, right? And there's one. I have one. I can send it to you when we're done. The guy found 49 lies in what Biden said in that debate. 49 lies, right? And brazen lies, things that are easily disproven, things everybody knows are false, right? So the more honest, ethical, forthright, moral candidate in this race is Trump, right? And you can say, okay, America might need to get where the bar is not that low. Okay, I gotcha. But right now, if you're just lining them up and you want to vote on morals and ethics and honor and all that, Trump is your guy, right? He tells the truth. He tells you what he's going to do. He tells you what his intentions are. He doesn't hide anything. He's not playing games. And, Biden, his entire campaign is based on things he says about Trump that are not true.
Yeah, look. I've been around long enough. You've been around long enough. I take whatever politicians say with a grain of salt, because we know that they stretch the truth. There's a lot of things going on there. They spin things to fit their narrative. So both sides, are going to do things that are
right. I get that, but I'm talking about lies. I'm talking about things that are not true.
Both sides do that. I mean, Trump doesn't always say exactly the truth, and neither does Biden. But didn't Holt ask him to name something, and Biden couldn't come up with something off the top of his head or whatever, right? So it's like, okay, if you're gonna ask us about that, then give me an example that we should have called him out on. And Joe's incapable of doing that.
Right. So he didn't know, or he'd have called him out on it at the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that interview hurt him as much as the Stephanopoulos interview, but it didn't instill any more confidence in Democrats, that have been struggling for the last 2-3 weeks here about what to do with Joe Biden.
I don't know about general public what did a lot more damage, because there had already been the debate and the Stephanopoulos interviews. Right, and so they sort of took some of the air out of that balloon, but the Democrat electeds are after the Holt interview, they're back on. We got to get rid of Joe. Right, Adam Schiff told donors last night that he cannot win, and now it looks like he will drag down the Senate and the House with him. So, and he's like, if we don't switch, we will lose all of Washington.
Yeah,
right?
Democrats are they're worried.
Yeah. So Biden, here's what's going to happen too, is you can already see it. The only wing of the party that he could hope to energize in his favor between now and November is the whack job leftist progressives, right? So now he's talking about court packing, term limits for the Supreme Court, code of ethics, enforced by Congress. I mean, are you kidding me? And I mean, all these things are, they're patently unconstitutional, and they'll never pass Congress. But they're going to throw progressive bombs now, right? You're not going to win. You're not going to be around to pay the price for whatever you do. So they're going to act like people who have absolutely nothing to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, the whole thing with SCOTUS, because it's basically like a pivot and a pander to the left. The people, he's losing a lot of his base, but the AOC and people like that, they're like, no, we got to stick with him and all this stuff. So now it's kind of like, okay, we will now talk about policies that you wanted, because AOC's been all over that whole court packing and all this other stuff, which is a bunch of nonsense and is not going to go anywhere. And so Joe is going there. But that group is a small group.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's
down to the only group that you can appeal to, and they can't win elections.
Right. So this is, it's like, who's in charge of the strategy here if you're going to go and pivot to those guys? Because you need to shore up and reassure the people, your base people. And granted, you're kind of losing them, but you can do things theoretically to reassure them and get them back on board. But it's like they're going backwards. Just every week, it's like they just go further and further backwards. And so
we don't really seem to have a plan. They're not. Trump is not. He's not up to 70% in the polls yet, right? He hasn't put him away. For whatever reason. I mean, there's about 43% of the people ain't going to vote for Trump under any circumstances, right? He could be running against Satan, and they would vote for Satan. But everybody else has gone to the other side. It's not quite there yet, But what's happening is, what the Democrats are realizing is, it's not even that Biden's all that far behind, or and in some cases, like their Senate candidates are ahead. Like Wisconsin, Hovde is trailing. Sam Brown's losing in Nevada. There's some Senate pickups we could get if there's a true avalanche landslide election that we probably won't get otherwise. But what's dawning on the Democrats is there is no catching up. Right? They're not going to gain any more votes. Right? The independents are kind of gone to the other side, and you'll get a few of them back, but not many. And the like waiting for it to harden at the end of the campaign is not going to happen. So that's why they're panicking. That's why Adam Schiff said what he said. That's why these congressmen are open challenging him. That's why the energy for dumping Joe comes from elected officials, right? It's not the grassroots. The grassroots are kind of behind Joe, right? In fact, Joe's gone up a little bit in the polls because the grassroots have rallied behind him. It made it hard for the elites to throw him off the ticket as quickly as they wanted to. But the fact of the business is, the pressure to get rid of him is coming from electeds, because they know if they don't get rid of him, the voters are going to get rid of them.
Yeah, and I think as we've talked about before, the thing is that as Biden at the top of the ticket hurts all the down ballot guys now.
Yeah,
and that's
in a
what
way
they're worried
that it
about.
didn't a month ago, or maybe even a week ago.
Yeah,
but it's a crater now.
Right, in elections, you're looking, particularly presidential elections, you look at the top of the ticket, and then you're looking for coattails, that people who will basically vote straight down the line. They'll take a Republican, or a Democrat. If they elect to ignore the top of the ticket, how much the down ballot people get is questionable, or they just don't vote at all. And I mean, I think we see there's a lot of that where you mentioned there are people never going to vote for Trump. I mean, I've seen those interviews and things like that, but they also that doesn't mean they're going to vote for Biden either. They're more likely just not to vote for president, which means that they may not vote for down ballot, which in Democrat-controlled states right now would be a disaster for them, and could change, could just alter the map. I mean, whereas I was really concerned about the House staying in Republican hands, a few months ago, I'm not quite as concerned now because Biden has kind of imploded. And, the Democratic National Convention's about a month from now, give or take, and so that's the timeline. I mean, we have 110 days to the election, but we've got about 30 days or thereabouts until the DNC convention. That's the real time clock, right? That's ticking away. Is what is Biden going to do? How much more pressure is going to be put on him to make a decision there? And then what do they do? I mean, so Democrats are in real trouble there, and they put Harris at the top of the ticket. That doesn't really help them a lot either. The confidence within Kamala Harris is not that high.
No, and she polls worse than Biden. Yeah. And what happens at DNC? That's a good question. Is if you're one of those people who thinks Biden shouldn't be off the ticket, what do you do in Chicago? Right? It's not going to look like what we're seeing now, where everybody who had disagreements with Trump is saying, forget my disagreements, I'm all in on Trump. Right? They're going to be just the opposite. And they're like, I'm not all in, and I do have disagreements, and let's consider another path. And, they have some ballot access problems if they change. As they try to pull anything in the convention, there's like 7 or 8 states they won't have their candidate on the ballot. I don't think that they're really going to do that. But, they got problems. They can't really change from Joe. I've said all along that they're not going to change from Joe because it doesn't get any better if they do. The only way they could is if something happened to Joe, right? So let's make sure that we keep Joe upright. And any of you idiots out there who are thinking of going and avenging what happened to Trump, you want to avenge Trump, you want to do something for Trump, stay out of it, right?
Well,
smooth sailing for Biden all the way to November.
Yeah,
and beyond.
No,
I don't want, no political violence ever, but to make sure that we do not harm a hair on that man's head in any way between now and then, and pray for his health to hold up.
Oh yeah, look, for the next 110 days, or maybe the next 30 days until the convention, because I just looked it up. It was August 19th, so we're basically a month away. The security is going to be tremendous. They're going to cover every nook and cranny. There's no way you're going to be able to take out a candidate at this point. I mean, RFK Jr. is getting protection now too. I mean, you're going to have to be pretty aggressive, to figure out a way to get there. But it won't serve any great purpose. Yeah, what happens at the DNC convention? That would be interesting. I mean, Biden would have to release his delegates anyway in order to make that step.
Right.
And then that creates there's just a whole list of problems that will occur. If Biden somehow steps back from this whole thing. But the Democrats' path to victory doesn't seem to be very clear at this point in time, right? I mean, I was saw this CNN thing where their political polling units, like, they've got Trump at 303 electoral votes right now, with the Democrats telling them they could see 330 because the way things have been going. So Biden got 306. So this would be better than that. 330, is definitely in landslide territory. So it's just, it doesn't look good for the Democrats at all. And everybody's like, and they're definitely panicking, trying to figure out a way to save, the presidency and their Senate control, everything like that.
Yeah, they're even, he's 3 points behind in Virginia. So, I mean, what you're talking about, like the down ballot implications of this. So, I don't know if you get Tim Kaine stuff, but Tim Kaine has been saying, hey, I need money because I'm not making my fundraising goals. A lot of Democrats aren't. Money's drying up to Democrats because people realize they're going to lose, right? So he's ahead right now. He's 9 points ahead, I think, of Hung Kao. But Hung Kao spoke at the convention. He got some name recognition last night. He he is raising money hand over fist, and he has a good personal story too. And Biden and Trump is somehow 3 points ahead in Virginia. So if Trump is 3 points ahead in Virginia, then Hung Kao has a chance, especially given that Kane is struggling a little bit, and he has the stench of running with Hillary still on him. You kind of can't ever deny that you did that, and I just don't know. I don't think that's a why. It looks like he should probably hang on, and he probably will, but I think that he's in a little more trouble than he expected to be.
Well, the thing too is that the Democrats are being forced to spend money in places that they weren't planning on doing so,
Right.
because the races have tightened in these other Democrat states, in essence, and so they're trying to make sure they get Biden and Democrats over the finish line, but they've got to pour a lot more money in that, which means is that it's not going to other states that are competitive as well. They've got to spread this out more, which is not the way they want to do it. So they're getting hurt that way.
Yeah, and they also thought also Brooks would be a shoe in, and I guess Larry Hogan has found some money. He's now ahead of her in fundraising.
So yeah, I mean, anything can happen. And as you mentioned before, I mean, Elon Musk pulling together some of the tech billionaires, and they're going to be pouring in $45 million a month, into a super PAC, to support Trump. I mean, that's not chump change, and that really helps. That really is going to help Trump and the campaign, Republicans, to do a lot more. And it's interesting too, because Trump and Vance are not big EV advocates, right?
Right.
So
Trump has come around to, if it makes me win, let's do it, right?
Well, there's a story that this is also strategic on the part of Musk, that he figures that even that even if the Trump wins and he takes some action against EVs, it'll hurt his competitors more than it'll hurt him. Right. So I think
you're talking about
Elon Musk,
vehicles.
Yeah,
Musk
is a smart guy. He's thought these things through. He's like, this guy's going to still be better for me.
Right. That's right. And Musk is like, he's only in these businesses because they're the businesses that get subsidized, right? He's happy to move to another subsidized business.
Right. Mr. Subsidy. All right. Okay. All right. We're near the end here. Let's take it out.
Well, there was the All-Star game last night, again won by the American League, in playing in some uniforms that were slightly less funky than the ones the National League was in. But the other thing is like my AAU basketball will come to an end finally this weekend. The two teams I coach are going to end up very near 60 games. They're right at 59 games playing since late March, right? Almost every weekend since late March. And it's been a wild ride. Two very different teams. Like one's all man, one's all zone. One has a dominant big person scorer. Other one basically doesn't score much inside, So it's almost like, I have their games will be back to back. It's almost like, you're doing one in a different language than the other. But a lot of great people on those teams, great kids who will be our future leaders in America. My teams and other people's teams. I'm not, they're not all coming from me, but we're built. These kids they're tough. They're smart. They work as a team, right? They know how to do that. They know how to cooperate. They know how to accept defeat and come back from it. I mean, it's a lot of valuable lessons. Huge tournament we're in down in D.C. at the convention center. So if anybody's downtown this weekend, come check it out.
All right, that's great. I didn't realize you're playing that many games. That's a heck of a schedule. All right. Well, everyone, thank you once again for bearing with my sound issues, which I'll be figuring this out for till I die. But in the meantime, please always stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And then we will. I think I maybe have to take off next week. I'll check. I'll let you know, Brian. And then if not, we'll be on. Otherwise, we'll be back in 2 weeks. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.